Hey everyone, Natalie here from Sparks of Joy Studio. Imagine this. You've had an extremely long day. You have been driving around in your car for about an hour between car pickup for the kids or getting yourself to work, getting home from work, and you pull in the driveway, you come in, you're ready to just throw everything down and grab a glass of wine. And then you see it. You see that amazing, colorful box, and you know what time it is. It is Sonnet's Maker's Box time. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I took one piece of decoupage paper from that and created, I think, almost 20 different projects. Let's get started. So for today's projects, I will be using this gorgeous holiday plaid. It is one of Roycycled's papers in Sonnet's Maker's Box. I am starting out by painting the front of all of these wood squares in a creamy white paint or a white paint. I can't remember which color it is, but you just want to make sure you paint with a lighter colored paint because that allows your decoupage paper to pop. If you're watching today's video and you are not a Sonnet's Creators Box member, I do want to let you know that there are some other options that you have. You can use just tissue paper, like gift wrap tissue paper that you can get in a plaid, or there is another option. On Sonnet's website, there is another type of recycled paper, so the quality of the paper will be the same as what I'm using here. Let me show you what that looks like. Now this is not the same colors, and in half of this paper it's not the same pattern, but ultimately the project is really using this plaid in the background. So you can definitely create the same vibe with lots of other options. And I do highly recommend, if it were up to me, I would choose Roycycled's papers over using a gift wrap tissue paper or whatever you call it, because the quality of the paper is just slightly thicker, and for me it's much easier to use in my projects. What I'm doing now is I have measured out the size of the paper I need. I'm being very mindful here. I really want to get as much out of this paper as I can. I do not want a lot of scraps left over. So you'll see that I am cutting out to the actual size of each of my different projects to try to ensure that I use up all of this paper in all the different items that I have. Once I have let that white paint dry on all of the bases to this first set of projects, I am using my decoupage method. So that is spritzing the decoupage paper lightly with some water, misting it with some water, using the liquid patina, placing it down onto the surface, then placing my paper on, covering it, smoothing it out, making sure there's no wrinkles, and then covering the top of that decoupage paper with the liquid patina and setting it aside to dry. I had created, or I was able to create, up to 13 different shelf sitters and rounds that I used in today's projects. The best part about using almost the exact measurements I needed on each of these projects was that I didn't have much to sand at the end, but there was still a little, and I wanted it to look as even as possible. I'm really trying to make this like super special because I know that this plaid is something that's very special to Sonnet. I feel like I see her use a lot of plaid. This will probably be the first time you have ever seen me use plaid. I don't really use plaid in my projects, but I love a challenge. So I was super happy to have this challenge because I wanted to do this, represent this paper well, I guess is the best way to put it. As I mentioned before, I also did some wood rounds. These are some coasters that I had gotten either on Amazon or at Hobby Lobby. I honestly don't remember, but I had 7 of them, and I actually set them up or painted them, prepped them, decoupaged them the exact same way I did those shelf sitters. I have 6 shelf sitters and 7 wood rounds that I'm turning into ornaments. Okay, what took me the longest in all of today's video was figuring out what I was going to do next. I am so indecisive and I kept wanting to make sure these were perfect. what I ended up deciding was I used music paper sheets, like some of vintage ones that I had gotten. I think I had bought them from Julie's Designs and Signs a while back, and I have tons of it left over. I ripped up some and I used some, and I'm kind of pasting them on at an angle on purpose to kind of give it a little bit more character, more detail. And then I'm going to be decoupaging on a variety of these printed sayings that I have from last year. These I just kind of had printed a bunch. I used some of them in projects for a craft fair last year. These are what I had left over. One I had also coffee stained and wrinkled it up prior to the using it at any time. I go ahead and set that one up this way. All of the other ones are just printed on regular white paper. They have not been aged or distressed in any way. So I'm not sure how I feel about that look. I would love your comments to let me know if you have a preference. Okay, for the wood rounds that I'm turning into ornaments, I got really excited about this project. Like I said, it took me forever, but I finally decided to paint the backs of them in Marquee by DIY. You already know my favorite Christmas red, and actually was one of the colors that came in Sonnet's box. So I tucked away the sample size that I got, and I continued to use the pint size, or not pint size, the 8 ounce size that I have in my stash already. I am now taking some of this greenery and I am cutting it down in a way to make it look like tiny Christmas trees, which I will then be hot gluing onto this plaid wood round. I loved how this looked, and I knew I wanted to style it up, but I wasn't exactly sure which way to go, so I actually chose two different styles, some with little wooden stars at the top, and others with a bow and some rusty bells. I also had a random piece of a wood scrapped. It was kind of like a crown molding, I think, kind of style. I don't know how to explain it. And then this is a like floating shelf or something that I found at the thrift store near me, and I am going to be turning it into a sign. So I was able to find enough decoupage paper to cover both of those. I believe I only show this shelf that I'm turning into a sign in this part of the video, but you'll be able to see what that other wood scrap piece looks like in a bit. I had this wooden Mary sign, or it's an ornament because it had a little eye hook on it and I had to take it off. And it was already painted. It was perfect. It was on a present my sister gave me a year or two ago. And so I glued that on with some tight bond quick and thick, and now I'm taking some of that thicker twine. Actually, this was a recommendation by Sonnet herself, which I agree this is the best twine to buy. I get it at Walmart. I know she does too. And I am going to hot glue a piece of that in that little groove that you see underneath the Mary wording. What I'm trying to do is make it almost look like I have strung a piece of that twine through the entire piece, and then I'm going to add some greenery and tie a bow in the middle so that it looks as though this kind of was wrapped up in a bow. Here's the back of that little shelf. I am painting it with 2 coats of coal black by Fusion to finish up this piece. I was originally going to do both of those signs the same way, but after putting this one together, this is the scrap wood that's kind of like that crown molding, I ended up drilling a hook into the front of it. I'm going to stand it vertically and add a wreath. And I added a ribbon. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. So originally it was going to be horizontal with a joy sign going across it, but I changed my mind. On to the hardest project for me in today's video. This is a watering can that my mom had given me. I absolutely love the shape of it, and it was already white, so it was perfect for decoupage, in my opinion. I had a perfect piece of that decoupage paper, and I am going to try very hard to get this entire decoupage paper to wrap around the watering can. Spoiler alert, I definitely got a lot of wrinkles. This is my very first time taking on a project like this with decoupage. A couple of things that I would have done differently in this project. I ended up using the decoupage matte glue, which I had decided on because I was worried that the surface was going to be so slick. I don't know why I worried so much about that since the liquid patina is a wonderful decoupage medium. I should have just stuck with that. I'm not sure if that changed how the project came out because for me, the decoupage mat is much stickier, so maybe that's why I got more wrinkles. But I did go through this project the same way that I would have with any other project. I started by putting my decoupage medium onto the project and then laying down my decoupage paper, which has been very lightly misted, and smoothing it onto the surface. I also will say that the other thing that probably made this a little bit more of a challenging project is that I had to work around that um, nozzle, the spout on the one side, and then the handle on the other. And even though it wasn't too much of a barrier or anything to work around, I feel like that alone made it even more difficult because there were parts of the, especially around the handle, there were parts of the can that I couldn't get to the same way I could with a project that didn't have that extra piece added on. Another thing that happened that I, again, probably should have done differently is I did not cut the length of this decoupage paper to size when I was wrapping it around, or before I started wrapping it around the project. I should have done that instead of what I ended up doing, which is getting a little artist brush as I got around the watering can to the other side and realizing the overlap. I used the artist brush at this point in the project to tear off the rest of that decoupage paper that would be overlapping. And so by doing that, I ended up ripping more of the project because I didn't have a good kind of angle on it to get exactly what I wanted to fit, snug next to the original piece. I know that's like the most complicated way to say that, so I apologize, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Here's where you see some of those wrinkles, and let me zoom in for you so you can kind of get a better look. I'm trying to smooth out some of those wrinkles. You can see that here. And it does work a little bit, but there's definitely some parts of the can that have very noticeable wrinkles. I was thinking about, oh, do I just distress it so that it looks like, it was just natural with age, like I know a lot of creators do. And I was so nervous to do that and mess up the paper. Remember, I have one sheet of this decoupage paper. I don't have multiples. So I decided to leave it as is and just embrace the wrinkles and move forward with the next step. Now I'm taking some of the transfers from the Gilded Transfer set, and I am going to be transferring it on to one side of this pot, and then on the other side I do end up using a different gold gilding transfer. I think that's how you say it. But it was from the Tinsel Transfer. So the flip side will say Merry Christmas. This side is just a label from the first one that came out this summer, the first transfer set that came out this summer. I have not had a lot of experience working with these transfers. I do know that it is best to work really putting that pressure on the parts that have the gold, and not rubbing like all the way across the transfer sheet the way that we do with the other transfer sets. So I'm working very carefully across that and using even the corner of my transfer stick to focus in on just where the gold parts are that are going to be transferred on. To make the style of this entire watering can look a little more cohesive, I decided to paint the rest of it in a black. So the rest of any of the whites that you see on this watering can are going to now be painted black. I'm using Little Black Dress by DIY. We are moving on to the next project. I promise you that I will show you all of the finished projects. They are all styled together and will be displayed for you at the end of this video. But before that, I have these two other tiny little like containers, these little tin containers. I had gotten these off of one of Royce's whatnot sales, and there were some, I got a set of I think maybe 6 of them, and some of them are already kind of Christmas colors. These two were not. One of them was like a dark pink, the other one is that like yellowy gold. I am going to decoupage some of the extra pieces of that holiday plaid onto these two containers. So once again, after painting it with 2 coats of that white paint and letting it dry, I am now coming in with my holiday plaid decoupage paper and I'm going to wrap it around. I will tell you, after doing that watering can, this project was so much easier. I also thought about making sure that the transfer paper that I had, not transfer paper, I apologize, the decoupage paper that I had was the right size to wrap around and get me right to the other edge of that paper around the can. So originally I was going to paint the tops of these tin cans in the Highlander by Fusion, which was one of the other colors that came in my maker's box, but I just couldn't do it. I could not stay away from my beautiful Marquee. So even though you see me painting it in Highlander here, I ended up painting over that in Marquee and then sealing it. I also want to mention that I did seal that little black dress that was on the watering can a little while back. I just didn't show you that on camera. So I do seal all of those paints. Now I'm taking some gold rub and buff, and this is gold leaf, and I am going to very gently rub it all around the rims of the bottoms of the cans. So I decided to do this only on the bottom. I don't think I did it on the top of my or on my lids for these cans. Again, we will see in a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I only did this to the bottom, the very bottom rim, and then the part that will be on the inside when the lid is sealed. Here I am sealing a bunch of that Marquee in my projects today with a sealer. I'm just using a polyacrylic matte sealer. I think this is by Minwax. And I wanted to let you see that I actually had enough decoupage paper of that holiday plaid for 3 more tags. One of these 4 tags actually has a different scrap of a decoupage paper on it, not the holiday plaid. So I had enough for 3 more tags, and I still wasn't done. There was still more paper left. Once that top coat was dry, I took some Titebond Quick and Thick and I am gluing on 2 of these bottle brush trees that have kind of like a creamy color to them onto the tops of the lids of the containers. And as you can see, here are my other holiday plaid tags that are off to the left. And for our final holiday plaid project, I have this adorable bear. It is so cute. It is a wooden bear that I picked up at the thrift store back in July, and I've been saving it. It is going to be a prize that one of my teammates on my fitness app has won, and she does vacation in Montreat, North Carolina, every year, and there are lots of bears where she is. And so I found this, thought of her, and I was just waiting for, the time when she would win our Freebie Friday to be able to send this to her. So I am going to paint the tie and the bowl that's in front of the bear in a creamy white because I'm going to be decoupaging the last little bit of my holiday plaid onto both of those parts. Another cool thing is that honey pot that's in front of the bear actually has like an indentation, so it can almost function like a vase. So I thought that was a really other neat part of this little project or this little thrifted item that I have. It ended up being only $3, so I thought that was a great deal. Once I'm done that, I now have decided that, the bears that my friend has around her, vacation spot are black bears. So I decided to paint the bear in black. I am using Cast Iron by Fusion, which was not part of Sonnet's Maker's Box this month, but it was in a previous month. I believe it was October's. And so I am pulling that out and using that to paint the rest of the bear. For the sides of the tie and the honey pot, I decided to go a little bit more neutral. I was originally thinking the red, then I decided against it. I am painting them both in Champagne Gold by Fusion, and that just adds, like, I don't know, I feel like it finishes off the piece. And I also used that Champagne Gold and the back of my brush, or the top of my paintbrush, like the other end, and dotted in some Champagne Gold into the eyes and the nose to kind of make them pop.
Christmas memories. I've been working so much lately, I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, I spend my time running around, keeping people pleased. But this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over new. 'Cause I missed you, so I'm letting go of everything but you. These are the good times with you. Baby, this year it's just gonna be you and me. Hang by the fire and chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, and I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, oh. La, da, 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 oh, oh, oh. La, da, 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 oh, oh. La, da, da, da. Making our Christmas memories. I've been wrapping presents for you. I've been hanging marbles in the tree. And I've lit my house with Christmas lights. So you should come back home to me. And when we wake up in the morning, I'm gonna play those carols that you love.
I hope you've enjoyed today's video. A huge thank you to Sonnet for allowing me to be a part of this creative team playlist. Please let me know what was your favorite, and let me know, is plaid something that you typically craft with or decorate with? It was very new to me, but I'm really glad I did it because it was a fabulous challenge and I really love what I ended up with. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend and I will see you very soon.